Hello and welcome, I am Thomas Porteus and you're watching The World Report. Let's take a look at the headlines this hour. Hamas releases a new video of an Israeli hostage who was captured in the October 7th attacks. In the 3.5-minute video, she appeals in Hebrew for the Israeli government to secure her release. Russia promises retaliation after Ukraine fires US-supplied missiles at the Belgorod region. Russia claims that they shot down 8 ATACMS missiles at in the border region. Officials in Ukraine have not yet responded to the accusation. Thousands take to the streets in the South Korean capital Seoul to rally both for and against the arrest of impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. The arrest warrant for Yoon is set to expire at midnight on Monday. Donald Trump says no American can be happy that flags will be at half-mast when he is inaugurated later this month. Joe Biden orders US flags to be lowered for a customary 30 days on federal in honor of late Jimmy Carter, who will be buried in a state funeral next week. Tensions rise as Russia claims to have downed 8 US-supplied ATACMS missiles fired by Ukraine into Belgorod. The Russian Ministry of Defense vowed retaliation, accusing Kiev of provoking further conflict. Meanwhile, Moscow has demanded the United Nations condemn Ukraine following an alleged drone attack in eastern Ukraine. The attack, which Russia says killed journalist Alexander Martyano and injured several others, occurred in the Donetsk region. Ukraine has yet to comment on either incident. Today I am joined by Glenn Grant, ex-advisor to Ukraine's defense minister, Gilbert Doctorow, Russian affairs expert, Professor Madhav Nalapat, and Professor Patrick Lancaster, war journalist. I want to come to you, Glenn Grant. I want to ask what is Kiev's position on this alleged missile attack that they launch into Russian territory, and how is this incident being framed by Ukrainian media?
I'm sorry, but I don't think it is being framed by Ukrainian media at all. I mean, this is a missile attack in the middle of a war. There are plenty of them, and you may, I noticed that you didn't actually speak it, you may not have noticed that there's actually another counterattack started in the Kursk area. So there will have been plenty of missile attacks going on all over the front line to try and hold down troops and to take people's minds off actually what is happening. In terms of the journalist being killed, this is only the 18th journalist being killed in this war compared to 150 in Syria. People don't go out deliberately to target journalists, but war journalists, war correspondents are right up in the front line, and they are going to get killed just the same as everybody else. It's probably the most risky profession after being a soldier in the world.
This war, obviously, there's speculation about this war coming to an end soon. Do you see that happening? Glenn Grant, sorry.
Yeah, so Russia is not going to stop at the moment. Putin thinks he's winning. He's going to keep going. And I don't think that anything that Trump or anybody else is going to say at the moment is going to stop him.
Thank you very much, Glenn Grant, for joining us. I want to move on to Professor Madhav Nalapat. What is the potential consequences of Russia's retaliation?
Well, I think Zelenskyy will be hoping that the consequences will be such as to draw the United States directly into a conflict, thereby presenting a conundrum for incoming President Trump. I think not just Zelenskyy, but a lot of people within the Biden administration as well have been busily laying all kinds of landmines for Donald Trump to step on. I think they're proving to be very bad losers, not in words the way Trump was, but in practice. So frankly, I think Zelenskyy is hoping that Putin will expand the war significantly and in a way create as large a zone of conflict that the United States has willy-nilly to be dragged in it, and Trump will find it difficult to stop it. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Putin is taking a very measured stance, and I think he realizes that this is a very provocative attack. There will be a very hard-hitting attack on Ukraine. There can be no doubt about that. Possibly it involves some newer missile and other systems that the Russians have been developing. You know, last time around they tested the Oreshnik. This time around they may test something else. But the reality is, I don't think Putin is going to be drawn into a larger war. He's not going to fall into Zelensky's trap. And as for, he's got a limited purpose in Ukraine, and he's secured about 80% of that purpose. I agree with Glenn that he's going to continue until he secures 100% of that purpose. And further, he would like to ensure that Ukraine never become part of any hostile alliance. That would be a given. So I think, yes, he is going to continue the war until these conditions are met. He gets the whole of territory that he wanted in the beginning of the war, and he makes sure that Ukraine is not in a position to join any military alliance after the war. Thank you.
And Professor Nalapur, I wanted to ask, what are the potential international consequences of Russia retaliation? How might it impact NATO's involvement?
Look, I don't think the people running NATO are going to be unwise enough to get directly involved. So far, they've done a very, very good job of ensuring that the whole war is kept subcritical, so they don't have to go in. And may I point out to you that over the last 1 year, public opinion has soured on the Ukraine war, and frankly soured on Zelenskyy. That's happening also in Ukraine. So I don't think there's any appetite among Western voters to go in for a war with Russia, not at all. The reality of the situation is people like George Soros, I'm sorry to say, judging by many of his actions, people like Joe Biden are still stuck in the old Cold War with the Soviet Union, forgetting it's now the Russian Federation. And as a consequence, they're giving China a free pass in the actual Cold War taking place, which is Cold War 2.0 between the democracies and China.
Thank you very much. Patrick Lancaster, I wanted to move on to you next. Obviously, you have been on the ground in the conflict. I want to ask what kind of damage one of these ATACMS missiles do.
Yeah, hi. Glad to be on again. Those the type of missiles do a lot of damage, and the fact of the permission being given to fire them deep into Russian territory, of course, inflamed the situation. But the situation on the ground in the war zone is now very, very complicated, as we know, with Russia taking a lot of territory almost every day, taking control of from Ukrainian forces. And a lot of these civilians are waiting in these territories and actually welcoming Russian forces. So as far as the side from Ukraine, it's pretty difficult for them, because the population of these territories that Russia is taking control of is actually in most times supporting the Russian forces. But the daily events here on the ground are very hard for not only the civilian population, but journalists as well, and first responders. Just in the last 24 hours, there has been, unfortunately, 6 journalists injured and one journalist killed just in the last 24 hours by Ukrainian drone attacks, because what Ukraine is doing with these drones is targeting civilian vehicles. And many journalists have been injured and killed over the last years and months, and many civilians. I myself have seen many civilians killed by these target attacks on civilian vehicles by Ukrainian forces. We're not talking about just personal cars, but also city buses and things like that. And it's not a chance of an accident at this point. These drone operators of the Ukrainian forces are seeing the live footage from the cameras on the drone and choosing to target these civilian vehicles and civilian...
Gilbert Doctorow, I wanted to bring you in there. What is your response? Have you heard anything about Ukrainian civilian attacks on... Ukrainian civilian attacks?
Well, that is one of the most important features in Russian news. And the Ukrainians have used the ATACMS missiles primarily against residential buildings. This is what is called terror. When you strike intentionally, target civilians either by these kamikaze drones, as the previous panelist just described, or if you're using larger missiles to attack residential buildings, then you are practicing terror. And there's a reason for terror. Terror is what you do when you cannot fight on the ground, fair and square, with your troops, and have any chance of winning. The Ukrainians are not just losing territory; they're losing men. They're losing men on the battlefield every day, whether it's 1,000 or 2,000. That depends on which front you're looking at. And they are rolling back. That is most important. It's not just a capture of territory, but the Ukrainian forces are retreating without having any place to build a secure protection for themselves. So this will keep on going to the Dnieper River.
So what do you say to the reports that came out of the Kursk region today of large amounts of Russian troops and even some North Korean troops being killed there?
That is possible. I would take with a grain of salt any announcements coming from Kiev. They have been unapologetic propagandists from the get-go. And so it is today. All of their numbers are unbelievable. The regrettable thing is that the American intelligence agencies are carrying this phony, false information from Kiev and giving it to the American leadership, to Mr. Biden and those around him. And so American policy is being based on falsehoods which are coming from Kiev. And that is sad, if not tragic.
Thank you very much for joining us, all our guests today. We will now look at some more news updates from across the world. Thousands of South Koreans took to the streets in rival rallies in Seoul, demanding either the arrest or the reinstatement of impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. The protests followed a failed arrest attempt over Yoon's controversial martial law declaration last month. Authorities had sought to arrest Yoon, but a standoff with presidential security and soldiers blocked the move. The arrest warrant is now in limbo, with the court order set to expire on Monday. Political tensions continue to rise as investigations into the incident unfold. With us for this discussion is our correspondent, Aditya Wadwan. Aditya, what are the recent updates in this story that you can give us?
Well, Tom, you see, a large group of people had rallied outside the South Korean impeached President Yoon. One section was demanding that he should be immediately arrested, and the other section was demanded against the arrest. This has been this protest has been this protest is being done because the arrest warrant of the impeached South Korean president will expire on Monday in the midnight. So that is why all the investigative authorities and people are going out and in a cold weather to demand his immediate arrest. Because now it needs to be seen as to how things move forward. Because this is the unprecedented thing. For the first time, a South Korean president has been impeached in the history of the country, and it is already embroiled in a...
Thank you very much, Aditya. We are now joined by guest Sonal Singh, counsellor and social worker, Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the TSG. Sonal Singh, I wanted to come to you first. This arrest warrant ends at midnight, supposedly, or Korean time. Why has he not been arrested yet?
I would say there's quite a bit complexity involved here. President Yoon has been impeached and stripped of his power. However, he still remains the president till the time Constitutional Court rules on his impeachment, correct? And that means he's still the president, security and protection and everything. So if you see on one side, he has the president immunity, he has the legal power, he has the public support, and on the other side, and also the military is helping a lot, like they are providing barricade and everything. And on the other side, the anti-corruption is having very short window from 31st to 6th midnight, 6th January midnight. They have a very short window for action, and they have to cross these many hurdles. And on top of it, I would say virtually it seems impossible right now because we have only till midnight on 6th of January. So I would say if he get arrested also, it will be only 48 hours because this is detention until and unless the legal procedure goes on. So unlikely that would be a very kind of stand for with President Yoon remaining as a defiant only, I would say that.
I'm going to move on to Madhav Nalaput for the next question. Despite martial law and impeachment, Yoon still seems to have these supporters. Why?
Look, the fact of the matter is, Yoon is right on his facts. He was wrong in his method of combating the situation that he saw on the facts. And the fact is that North Korea and even very much more China both have deeply embedded themselves within the South Korean society and within the South Korean establishment. And this is a danger that South Korea faces, an existential danger where China is concerned, certainly. One day I hope to see the great Korean people unite in a consensus, but that the day doesn't look like it's going to dawn anytime soon. But this is a reality. Yoon is only pointed to a reality, and this entire mob against him, including the mob, if I may say so, calling for his arrest. I mean, this is absurd. That arrest warrant is illegal. He is a sitting president. He cannot be arrested. How on earth could you issue a warrant to arrest a sitting president when the Korean law is very clear that you cannot, that he is immune from such an arrest? So the very action of trying to arrest him is not only legal, it is unethical and immoral. I want to point out, as far as we in the democracies are concerned, I think, frankly, Yoon deserves our sympathy for a simple reason. He is right on the facts. The influence of communist China runs deep. And I'm very certain that not just influence, but bags of money are being used in this bid against Yoon. I definitely hope that Yoon will survive this. I again repeat, he was right on the facts. He was wrong in his method. He should have communicated the danger to the South Korean people and made an open session to the South Korean parliament in front of the television cameras, instead of which he resorted to martial law and withdrew in 6 hours. Everybody makes a mistake. I don't think that either you or I or anybody else has not made mistakes in our life. Forget mistakes. Yoon has also made a mistake. He retracted from that mistake. Where is the ground to arrest him now? That he's retracted. He has himself retracted his own order. So where is the ground of arrest? This whole thing has been put up by elements that are friendly to a hostile country, very frankly, and I'm sure there's ample funding for this kind of protest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. We will now move to some more news updates from across the world. Austria's Chancellor Karl Nehammer announces his resignation after coalition talks failed, citing unresolved issues with the Social Democrats. The political landscape remains uncertain as the country faces economic challenges and a potential leadership change. Let's have a look at the report.
Austria's Chancellor Karl Nehammer has confirmed that he will resign in the coming days both as Chancellor and party leader after talks about forming a coalition government collapsed.
In den nächsten Tagen zurückziehen und einen geordneten Übergang ermöglichen. Dieser geordnete Übergang ist mir besonders wichtig, weil ich stets für Stabilität in unserem Land und in der Volkspartei gestanden bin.
Chancellor Nehammer will resign, citing failure to resolve key issues between his party, which is the Austrian People's Party OVP, and the Social Democratic Party SPO during talks which aim to form a coalition government without the far-right Freedom Party FPO. The FPO won the first parliamentary election in its history with nearly 30% of the vote in September. But other parties refused to form a coalition with its Russia-friendly, Eurosceptic leader, Herbert Kickl. Nehammer said in a video post on X that his party, the People's Party, will not agree to economically damaging, anti-growth policies or new taxes. He further accused the Social Democrats of being too radical. Nehammer's resignation announcement on Saturday comes a day after the Liberal Neos Party withdrew from the negotiations.
Die Verhandlungen zu einer möglichen Dreierkoalition gemeinsam mit Schwarz-Rot in der Rolle eines künftigen Regierungspartners nicht fortsetzen werden.
After Nehammer's resignation, the People's Party will meet to discuss potential successors. Austria's political situation remains uncertain, with no immediate solution to the government deadlock. The next government faces a budget deficit, rising unemployment, and the challenge of saving up to 24.7 billion euros amid a 2-year recession. Bureau Report, NewsX.
That's all we have time for. We'll be back with more international news updates from across the world.